Well, let me start by asking this. What are the primary causes of hearing loss? I mean, is it simply getting older?
A lot of times,
bound to happen to all of us?
Well, a lot of times it does. Not everybody who is over the age of 65 has a hearing loss. In fact, I test people all the time who come in and they say, "Well, I think I have a problem," but we test them and they're fine. And they're fine. But there are a large number of seniors, particularly, who, you know, they have an age-related loss. You mentioned presbycusis, which is the scientific term for an age-related loss. So primarily, we're going to see that in our office anyway. Those are the types of losses we're going to see.
Now, I have to tell you though, because I was laughing. I was not familiar with that term, presbycusis, and I wanted to be sure that I pronounced it right on air.
And you did a great job. You did a bang-up job. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. There you go, folks. Presbycusis.
Right. There's presbycusis. There's also noise-induced hearing loss. A lot of my patients in Rotterdam worked at GE. And the fellas, in fact, I met a fellow over the weekend who said, yep, was at the turbine building for 37 years, and we test them, and sure enough, their specific hearing loss that we see on the testing denotes a noise-induced loss. There are some other folks who have genetic disposition for hearing loss. Mom or dad had a biological issue or physiological issue.
That could be another reason.
Right. And you can also have hearing loss from certain medications that you'll take as well. There are a number of drugs which they call ototoxic. Large doses of aspirin. A lot of the myosin drugs, erythromycin, some of the others, water pills, things like that, which, you know, that can also have an effect on how a patient hears. So
that's interesting.
So hearing loss is, again, it's not something to ignore, because it can be a symptom of some other issues, some other medical things that are going on, or because of other medical things that are going on.
Well, now going back to the presbycusis that we were talking about, gradual hearing loss over time because of being exposed to loud noises. For a lot of folks that say that are over 65, at when they were younger, and even something as simple as mowing their lawn. I mean, I guess years ago, we didn't think about using earplugs for lawn mowing. Exactly.
Or even the folks who work around loud noise. Again, I mentioned GE before. GE. And what's happening with GE is in the early 70s, OSHA came into effect, and they started having safety people around, and that's when people started introducing earplugs and safety problems.
But prior to that,
the guys that are working in the 40s and 50s and 60s, I mean, they're inside with punch presses and all of these different noises. I mean, physically damaging their hearing, and you know, nobody really thought twice about it, like you said.
They didn't have that. They didn't have that protection. They just weren't aware of it. They didn't think twice about it. And now, you know, I see people with earplugs mowing their lawns. And,
very smart. Absolutely.
Very smart. And you know, and concerts, as much fun as it is to go to a concert and, you know, really get into that, you know, some of the decibels at those concerts can reach pretty high levels.
Yeah, you can, and it's usually, you know, even if you're in the back, you know, you can hold a sound level meter in there and still be well above safety limits. Absolutely. Yeah. So everybody from old to young, it's definitely something to be concerned about.
It is definitely. We're getting a question from Edward, and thank you very much, Edward, for logging on and for your question. And Edward is asking, my dad has hearing aids, started having this problem at an early age. What are my chances of getting this as well?
Well, it depends on where the hearing loss came from. Again, like I had said a moment ago, if it is a genetic disposition, you know, mom and dad, and not necessarily the noise-induced loss. You know, if dad worked at GE for 38 years and lost his hearing because of that, that doesn't automatically mean that you will. But what will happen a lot of times, if it is more of a medical issue, you know, and there are different types of hearing loss besides presbycusis, again, that are more physiological in nature, that can happen. I mean, just like, you know, kids can have predispositions to other diseases and things that mom and dad have. Yeah, kids can do that as well. So good to be checked. Have the baseline exam early on, and then follow it through, and to be able to keep track of that.
So I guess the answer is possibly.
Absolutely.
I guess it's possible, but not necessarily definite because, again, depending on the type of hearing loss. So,
exactly.
I hope that answers your question, Edward. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
We're getting another one from Patricia. Thank you, Patricia, for logging on and for your question. Patricia says, I am nearly 65 and I have loss of hearing whenever I have congestion, which is frequent. Is there a hearing accessory that can be used during those times? I guess the time when she has the congestion.
Well, I guess the answer, the real answer would start to know where her hearing is at from square one, you know, when she's feeling well. Where the hearing is, because if she has a hearing loss normally, then when she has the fluid in her ears,
it's going to make it even worse.
Exactly, and that would be a time where, yeah, if she had hearing aids, they can be programmed specifically so that they're good when she's not congested or good when she is. Typically, the fluid, you know, that's going to come from a cold. Can result in an ear infection, and typically that is what we call suppurative otitis media. There's another fancy word for it. But that is a fluid in the middle ear that is laced with bacteria from being cold, having sinus infections and things like that. Typically, if that's a chronic problem, she should see an ear, nose, and throat doctor to be able to provide, you know, antibiotics or a nasal steroid or something like that. So that would be another move if it's a chronic problem, to see her doctor, see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So I guess the long and the short of it is, just like the first gentleman, have your hearing tested when things are good. And then when things are not so good, then you'll be able to compare and contrast the two.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And Patricia, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for your question.